Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to this brief press conference of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Today, I want to address the issues arising from INEC's recent notice to resident electoral officers across the country to prepare for resident electoral commissioners to prepare for what they call nationwide revalidation. And Abuja School says maybe it is time for INEC to redirect itself. As Nigeria prepares for the most important aspect of the 2027 election, this electoral cycle, the Independent National Electoral Commission comes into public light more than before. And then, of course, there is now a greater vigilant assessment of its performance. The depressing failure of INEC to conduct free and fair election 2023 should make all Nigerians to be more concerned about the management of 2027 election. At Abuja School, in 2023, run up to 2022, we set up the Democracy Observatory, 2023 Election Observatory. And the idea of that observatory was to monitor how INEC prepared itself for the 2023 election with a view to spotting errors and flagging them and helping INEC perhaps to course correct and deliver free and fair election. As we near the 2027 election, or as we prepare for it, the Abuja School is again setting up the 2027 Election Observatory. And the idea remains the same, that to pay attention to what INEC is doing, bring social science research and rigor to understand and analyzing the various components of INEC's preparation for 2027 election, advocate for changes where we see error, and generally help the electoral management body to steer the process to a conclusion that will, protect democracy and ensure electoral justice. So in that light, we want to start off by pointing out that the outcome of the last election should awake INEC leadership to the need to be more sensitive and cautious in its action and activities in order to generate the level of public trust required for a free, fair, and credible election in 2027. So far, the public trust, Nigeria's public trust on election is very low, such that today, perhaps the electoral system, and INEC particularly, these are the institutions that have the lowest trust, the INEC and judiciary, according to the latest Afrobarometer test. So far, the public trust level of INEC and Nigeria's electoral system is very abysmal, and the Nigerian people are not confident that INEC will conduct free and fair election in 2027. Even INEC leadership admits that the public trust level is very low. So there's a new leadership in INEC headed by Professor Joash Amopitan. Professor Joash Amopitan did not cause the failures of the past that led to, deep loss of public trust in the electoral system and in INEC itself. But he has a responsibility to take actions that will rebuild trust and ensure a high level of voter participation in the upcoming elections. So far, he's not doing that. That's why we're calling this press conference. He's actually worsening the lack of public trust in elections by the actions that the Commission have been taking so far. And today we want to focus on one of those actions, which is the decision to mandate all Nigerian voters, about 93 million or more of voters, to all go and validate their votes, their registration. Now, let's first start from the administrative side of it before we go to the legal aspect of it. What's the need, compelling need, for this revalidation? First, clean the data, clean the register of voters. This is a periodic thing INEC does from time to time. Maybe fishing out some people who ought not to vote. Maybe those who are dead, who probably would have died within the electoral period. And of course, getting those who are young, who didn't meet the threshold before the last election. All this administrative work that can be done without mandating a nationwide voter revalidation. One, the major period that we had 5 years ago, it took long from 1999 before the first major re-registration occurred. And it occurred when INEC changed technology, moved into card reader. So there was real compelling need to re-register again. Two, the current registration is based on biometric, biomodal system, which allows both for fingerprint as well as for face capture. So if the argument is that some pictures may have been old, perhaps, faded, the biometric is there. So from a technology point of view, there may not be a compelling reason to create disproportionate burden on citizens in an electoral period where the timelines are very, very narrow, where INEC has no breathing space, where the political parties themselves are walking a tightrope to mandate all voters, and in an electoral system where 70% voter participation, 18% in the last FCT election, tells a story around voter apathy. And to not expect that these people will in a few months' time all come out, get validated, and if they don't, they lose their registration. This is wrong regulatory intervention at this point. Again, time. So the time is of essence. The exercise should have been done earlier. If there was need, if there was a compelling need to basically, revalidation is like re-registration. It should have been done earlier, before now. So carrying out such sensitive program less than 9 months to the general election is counterproductive. It does not suggest a well thought out strategy for effective election management. Continue with this planned initiative might affect INEC in Canada to the other activities for the general election, since it will definitely overlap with those activities. So from a time management perspective, INEC has a lot on the plate to do. Just last night or so, INEC issued another circular about verifying political parties. Too many things that are not relevant to the real aspect of free and fair election. I will come to that again. Again, typical of INEC, the level of publicity and preparation of the public for this is also very poor. And the general perception of electorates towards INEC is at the lowest level, like I said. And this action will further erode confidence in INEC. We are struggling to get new voters, young people who have attained the age of 18, to get registered. I am telling people who are already registered to go out and revalidate the registration. INEC data shows that even the reception for new registration is not very encouraging. So why this when you don't have time? And you also struggle with time to deal with verifying. Very soon now, parties will be sending INEC the electronic register of members. INEC has to work and do that. Does INEC have the capability to do all this? And I will get to what's the motive? Why is INEC doing this? Again, INEC, like we know, is not a very honest and well-managed entity. I mean, electoral cycles show that INEC is probably one of the most corrupt institutions in this country. That is not no longer a debatable fact. So this also creates opportunity, the possibility that some elements in INEC using this as an opportunity to deliberately reduce the voting power of some regions on the excuse that they didn't come out for revalidation. So this is an election that is marked with a lot of distrust, a lot of conflicts, a lot of ethnic, religious arguments. Already, INEC chairman faced a blistering attack from some northern Muslims who pointed out to his previous professional work as a lawyer on the question of Christian genocide. Now, so a leader that's facing that level of public distrust, why should you engage in a practice that could be interpreted as an attempt to maybe flush out voters from one zone? Because all INEC needs to do is to say your validation failed. Maybe your name was different. We do have the capacity to do a retail adjudication of individuals who may say, at the final day INEC unveils the cleaned up voter register. Do you have the capacity for these individuals to come and adjudicate one by one that even though my name is not there, it's not true, my name is correct, it's not true, I'm a Nigerian, it's not true. So you are creating an opportunity for INEC officials and at various places to use this and the process use them, and voter suppression is a real threat here. So they could suppress, it could be in the southwest, it could be in the southeast, it could be in the north central, it could be in the northeast, northwest, it could be anywhere. But there could be INEC officials who will work with politicians who have incentive to suppress voter register in some places because of seeming or apparent political alignment of those regions. So why are you creating this situation that creates the impression that a tool that could be misused to create more disaffection, distrust, and probably create conflict in the run-up to an election where every indicator is showing red? Why? What is the justification? Again, on the administrative side of it, the public has no way of knowing exactly who came out for revalidation, since we all have to rely solely on the data provided by INEC. So INEC could say that, for example, the Southeast, typically, that they did only 10% on the voter list came out for it. How will you control it? Do you have satellite imagery of people who came at each of the centers to go back and validate? So INEC leadership just sits in the offices and don't think around three-dimensional thinking. First, what should we ought us to do? Second, how will it impact on people? Third, what's the perception of what we're doing? Yeah. That three-dimensional thinking is missing. You don't just, let's assume INEC means well. This is not justified by the cost benefit. The dangers are more. Again, if you look at the timeline, the time frame between publishing of the revalidated exercise and the final register will not be enough for comprehensive claim and objections required under the Act. So the time frame after INEC publishes the revalidated list and when INEC finally gives us the final register, the Electoral Act and the rules require INEC at a time definite to publish the final. At that point, no more addition to the voter register. The time is not enough to manage a comprehensive claim and objections that may arise for this exercise. Again, apathy is the big elephant in the room. This new exercise that's sudden will further deepen distrust of INEC by Nigerians. Okay. Now, so administratively, there's too many problems associated with this. The question is, why is INEC going on with this? I think, and I've said this before, that the challenge for election today is ensuring that votes are fairly counted and the counts are reflected in the result declared. Every other problem we can manage in the long term. This is not the right time to begin to do the logistics, to begin to pick needle, pick pins, pick small things, and leave out the big. The big question was answered badly, which is electronic transmission. We failed. Those are the things that matter. How do you create confidence in the political party leadership. Today, we see ADC leadership in a quagmire. How do you make the party strong to compete? Those are the issues. Forget there could be 1 or 2, 3, votes, or 1 or 2, 3 problem with the register. Those are manageable. And then again, if you look at the legal aspect of it, there's no doubt that the Act gives INEC powers to update and clean up register. If you look at section 9, 10, 11 of the Act, it gives INEC authority to compile, update, maintain a national register. Now, as our lawyers have also noted, update is not a revalidation. INEC can internally update their data. In fact, a software, they could create an algorithm that optimizes and clean up the data or update it. The right of citizens to vote is defined by the Constitution and Electoral Act. And when they register to vote, they have earned the entitlement to vote. You cannot, without legislative authorization or even constitutional authorization, go back and ask that the only condition for them to vote is that they perform another administrative action, namely come out to prove that they are who they are. One, it's a burden that the legislature will not place on the citizen. And INEC has no administrative power to create additional conditions for citizens to exercise rights that the Constitution has given them, which they have met the requirement for those exercise, which is turn 18, go and register. In fact, even when people register, I remember one of us, I think Victor took a case to court, and even those who are on temporary voters card have earned the right to vote. So if INEC's administrative failure does not guarantee them permanent voters' right, the court ruled that they have the right to vote. And the INEC later said they should go and vote. Is that not correct? So what this tells you that the right to vote does not require extra validation. So if INEC needs to take administrative action to clean the record, or update the record as the Constitution gives them right, they can do that. And again, there are sections in the law where through various forms, any problem with the voter register can be taken care of administratively. So 3 points. One, that INEC's mandating the voters to go and revalidate is itself administratively bad decision because it does not really solve any real problem. 2, it's overburdening of voters. 3, it's actually a wrong strategy at the time when INEC is struggling with public perception, struggling with voter apathy, struggling with a choked timeline where it can apply itself to more important things. And 4th, this requirement of validation is actually illegal, violates the Electoral Act and the Constitution, and that it probably could be read, and maybe arguably so, that perhaps it's a design to further suppress votes in some critical areas, because there's no good reason for requiring validation. If there are problems with the voter register, INEC has been periodically updating them. In fact, in the last election, INEC did the internal cleaning of the voters register. Some people or some names were no longer there. INEC showed us that some names were no longer valid because either they were double registration proven by technology, either they were invalid registration, either they were people who are not Nigerian citizens, either they were faulty, manipulated registration. INEC always has the internal mechanism, the powers to clean them up. So Abuja School is committed to this action, not from any partisan perspective, but the fact that just like we said in 2023, we were prophetic. We said, hold INEC responsible. The weakest link, Abuja School said so, in this process is INEC, and that we should put all eyes on INEC. They didn't listen to us. INEC enchanted us with beavers, IRF, and INEC failed. Once again, Abuja School is saying we are setting up the 27 election observatory, and our job is to track INEC, challenge INEC. We're going to be filing several suits against INEC. In fact, if INEC continues to go ahead with the validation, we will challenge it in court that INEC has no such powers to force citizens or to exclude anybody from voting because they didn't come out to validate their vote. That's nothing like validation. If registration has been properly done, it's done. You are entitled, you may not be qualified to vote, but once you are qualified, it cannot be unqualified again, except in cases the constitution is clear. Maybe you are a dead person, they remove from the list. They themselves should be the ones who go to the death, to the birth and death registry, get data, generate data, and clean it. Who asks the dead people to come and invalidate that they are dead? In the same way, you shouldn't ask voters who have already voted, done everything, have their permanent. The reason why it's called permanent voters card is that it's permanent until regulation changes the voting methodology or prescribe a new wave of registration. Otherwise, you do not have. So INEC cannot, under the pretense of validation, unlawful validation in this case, change the inalienable right of Nigerians to vote into a right that can be circumscribed, conscripted, reduced, reshaped through administrative action. That's unlawful. And Abuja School, if INEC, we appeal to INEC to shelve this plan because INEC has a lot to do. And we are even sympathizing with the INEC. INEC has too many things to do. INEC is asking for a lot of money to do their work. Why should they spend those resources doing what is not central to free and fair election? And the final thing I would say here is that to also yesterday I talked about the requirement to go and do review, validation of political parties. What for? Look, 9 months to election. In all this while, nobody has done that. So people are now raising rumor that this is aimed at deregistering some opposition parties. Look, INEC has to be careful about the perception of their actions. I talked about the 3 Ds. 1, their mandate, legality. 2, the impact on citizens, the burden they create for parties and citizens. And thirdly, perception of what they do. How can you go at this time when there's so much rumor, some of them credible, that the ruling party is trying to muzzle the opposition? When there's allegation that you are a stooge of ruling party, and you're not telling parties want to validate you want to assess again whether you have your NIN number, whether your leaders are Nigerians, whether they have the local government state of origin, and so after exercise, somebody will create a report and say maybe Party X, their leadership failed this category, therefore they are deregistered. The observatory wants to say that INEC should know that it bears responsibility for the life and death of this democracy. And so far, in 2023, INEC failed woefully. If not that Nigerians were peace-loving, and maybe the outcome pleased some sections of Nigeria, the conduct of last election was enough to create crisis in this country. 2037 will be much more difficult for us. We are facing terrorism. We're almost overrun by bandits and terrorists. We have insurgents among us trying to destabilize us. Why should we allow politics to further destabilize the country? Why should ill-thought-out plans by INEC further erode confidence in the electoral process? Abuja School's position is clear that the 3 fundamental things we must do is, first, increase public trust in the electoral system. 2, focus on the things that matter for accuracy of votes and results. Leave out all this other grand idea about logistics. Just zero in. Make sure that on January when they vote for the president, and maybe in February or March when they vote for the governors, that votes, results declared inspire confidence in the people. Leave out these frivolities and focus on the main thing. Thank you very much. I think maybe my colleagues can, maybe 1 or 2 people who want to add something to it. Of course, we are not the police force. We are not commander-in-chief of the armed forces. We are not going to arrest Amuputan. But our job as a school is to, 1, think, report, think, research, think, analyze, report, and advocate. We've done a bit. That's why also media. Every day you guys are reporting about one thing or the other, pointing out what's not working, what is working, telling government that this is a problem here. If some people are going to attack Nigeria and you have information that some banditry activity, you will report it. Is that not correct? But whether the police goes ahead to go and stop that crisis or they allow it to it's not, you've done a bit. Unfortunately, our politics, and that's a good question, because we've seen that many of the things we have been saying, they're not listening. And that's why today this country is verging towards collapse. Anybody who understands state failure and state building knows that every indicator points to a massive, what we call wicked crisis that is difficult to solve. If you look at the territorial integrity, look at how terrorists are, even if they're not defeating us, at least they are suffocating us. The Nigerian military, with all their heroism, have been struggling. Look at the level of killing. Look at what's going on. The president, I think today, should be somewhere in Jos. Is that not correct? Mm-hmm. We are citizens, we are butchered. Look at the other indicators around insecurity. You barely can travel. Today, when I go to airport and see struggling Nigerians paying 90,000, 100,000 to fly, struggling people, 100,000 to fly plane, and their salaries are maybe, if they are minimum wage, and 70,000. Some are actually not in the official 70,000 minimum wage. They're earning less than 30, 40, 50. Is that not correct? And they're flying. Why are they flying? They're flying because they can't use road. When I was a student at Harvard, I traveled by road to New York. In fact, before anybody flies, you go by night bus. You go by night bus. And 5, 6 hours in the morning, you're fresh in New York. People don't even fly. Forget I talk about people don't fly regularly interstate in the US. Because why do you have to? And it's cheap. It's not like too expensive. $200, okay? Maybe $150 so to get some deal. But they prefer to enter 20,000 naira, $20 Chinese bus from Boston to New York, and you're fresh. Because you know there's no banditry. Nobody's going to kidnap you. Me, at my level, the level, even at my own level, the number of times I fly, sometimes I'll go by road. From here to Enugu should be less than 4 or 5 hours if the roads are good. Is that not correct? Why should you go by air? If you leave now, before, there's some part of Europe, some of you now, America, to go to buy grocery, you can take 2 hours by road. Is that not correct? To go to a shop. So the indicators of failure is huge. And the point is that the reason why Abuja school is studying the democracy in Nigeria is not about who wins. That's a mistake. The process is more important than the outcome. If you have a free and fair election, it does 3 things. 1, it creates a stabilizing effect. People know that, well, this person won, and they allow you 4 years, okay? They can hate you, they can criticize you, they can do anything, but they will say, that man won. Then they will have confidence that they can defeat you. Is that not correct? So they don't go and organize coup. Look, everything we're talking today, let's not forget that a few months ago, we were told that some people organized coup in Nigeria. Is that not correct? They are in some kind of detention. So if there could be coup today, what makes you think there will be no coup if things go bad? Yeah. That coup is, we didn't know when Guinea was having coup, nobody knew that Burkina Faso would get their own. We didn't know that Mali will have their own. Nigeria will have their own. We even see efforts being made in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. Is that not correct? So the danger of this stonewalling, of deaf and dumb leadership that we have in this country, our prayer is let it not hit us. Because when the chicken comes to roost, it's not the wicked people only that get. Again, many countries have disappeared from earth in the history of, at least modern history. Failed countries. Look at Somalia, where they are now. Look at Sudan, what's going on there. So why do you think that we are better than them? So the reason why we are shouting is that we want Nigeria to cross 2027 in a credible form, where no matter who wins, some people will be rejoicing, some people will be in their room saying, when do we get it wrong? But the streets will be free, and all of us will be going free, moving around. So, yes, politicians are desperate. They don't care about outcomes. They win by all means, win and later go to court. The language is, logic is win by all means, then later go to court. But what we're saying is, the thing to lose is far more than election. If 2027, if INEC misdirects 2027, what we'll lose is not just an election. we might lose the country. So Abuja School's job is to be honest, forthright, courageous, and bring ideas and evidence to support our ideas. Their job as media is to amplify our message. We hope that the duty of those in power is to listen and do the right thing. The Abuja School never challenges INEC's power to update, keep, maintain voter register. It's their power, granted especially by law. So they can collaborate with the Identity Management Office. They can collaborate with even the National Security Advisor's Office. They can work with the central bank, work with all data collection centers across the country, the NBS, and internally. So if your name is not there, then you can go and challenge it, you get a point, and provide evidence to show that your name ought to be. So that's what we call case-by-case adjudication. So if INEC publish the preliminary voters list and my name is missing, I can now say, INEC, I'm a registered voter. I registered on so they see my card. Why do you take me off? They say, oh, we thought this Oluwade is from Namibia. It's not you. I said, please put me back. So INEC has the power. What we are saying is that INEC does not have the power, and it's not administratively beneficial to ask citizens to go out and, so you are putting the burden on us. We are now to establish that we are voters. It's INEC who should say, I'm not a voter. Then onus is on me to say, I'm a voter. So INEC can look at the data and say, oh, the app circles your name. Maybe there are 3 Sam Amade, Samuel Ifa Ejikwa Amade with the same name, and maybe something that looks like the same biometric, whatever it is. So I can raise a query about whether I'm a qualified voter. So you're right, they can work with institutions to generate internal process for cleaning, updating the voter register. For example, death. People have died. We know that we don't keep good records. Some families may not go and take death certificates, and therefore, or even if they take, some local governments may not have updated. They just issue the deed to you. The death certificate are lying. They are not organized into a digitalized data bank where people can see through. INEC has the right to say, okay, protocol. We're going to ask all existing death certificate centers to give us the data, sweep it in, and collect it. And they see that social persons who still here with this date of birth, with this name, has died. They don't put the person's name. Because that dead person will not come and tell them he's dead. And maybe the family don't care. Or they see George Bush, F. Bush, with the face of Bush. They clean it up. So that's the difference. They have the right to collaborate with institutions and find how to make our register more probative, accurate. But they have no powers, in my view, in our view of the Abuja School, to mandate that everybody should come out. If you don't come out, you lose the right to vote. That's the point. Thank you.
Even apart from the power, I doubt if they have the competence enough to do that. I remember the last local government, the FCT election. I was actually disenfranchised from voting. I went to my voting center. Unknowingly, they've shifted my distance to almost more than 6 kilometer distance without pre-informing me or pre-informing people. So I actually doubt if they have the capacity to organize in such a little time frame. So capacity is equally important, coordination is equally very important. So I doubt if they have that to be able to have a successful, if they are talking of revalidation, which, as we have pointed out, is illegal and more or less like illegitimate to conduct.
The country and INEC do not have the powers to revalidate voters registers. There will be cancellation of elections across the country in several positions, such as the Senate, House of Reps, governorship, and the presidency. Because if you revalidate voter register and you disenfranchise a high propensity of voters, the consequence is that the courts might likely cancel such elections. So these are things we should guard against. That revalidation is invalid, unconstitutional, and do not have any legal backing. So the possibility of nationwide cancellation of election is imminent if INEC go ahead to implement this one illegal revalidation. That's my point.
Introduction of voters. What I mean by introduction is that some data may be introduced into the general data we have currently that is capable of mining the entire process. Again, we might have a situation whereby data people have been duly registered are disenfranchised due to one reason or the other. So as such, we are saying no to this revalidation. What we have is okay for us at the moment, and it is not timely for INEC to come up with any form of revalidation because of time factor.